It's 3 in the morning, London, 1857. A man steps out of his house into the dark and starts walking. He will walk 30 miles before the sun comes up, through the slums, across the bridges, past the river, not for exercise, because he can't sleep. And walking is the only thing that quiets his mind. That man was Charles Dickens, one of the most celebrated writers who's ever lived. And for years he spent his nights like this, awake, walking, unable to switch off. Here's what I've come to understand after 10 years of my own insomnia and 8 years of helping other people through theirs. Some of the most brilliant minds in history could not sleep. And it's not a coincidence. The same thing that made them extraordinary was the same thing that kept them awake at night, a nervous system that never learned how to stand down. Today I want to walk you through a few of them, with what their nights actually look like and what it actually cost them, and what their stories reveal about their own sleep, because I promise you by the end of this, you're going to see yourself in there somewhere. And I want to say this up front because it's the whole point. It's not a story about doom, it's a story about understanding, because once you see the pattern in them, you can finally see it in yourself. And what they never got the chance to learn, you can. Let's start with Dickens, because his story is almost picture perfect for what insomnia really is. Dickens called himself, in his own words, an episodic insomniac. And when the sleeplessness hit, he had a remedy that sounds extreme, and was. He would leave his house in the middle of the night and walk the streets of London for hours. One night he walked the full 30 miles from London, his home, to his country house, a walk that took him 7 hours, arriving when the sun came up. And here's the details that I find fascinating. The worst of his insomnia came during a specific period of his life. The years where he met a young actress, began an affair, while unable to leave his wife of 20 years for fear of scandal. His own writing about those night walks never names what was haunting him. He only describes the cure. But the timing tells a different story. His sleep broke down exactly when his inner life became something he could not face in daylight. That is not a coincidence. This is a pattern, because here's what is actually happening. Dickens' mind would not go quiet at night, so he had to put his body in motion to escape it. He literally walked away from his own thoughts until his body was exhausted enough to override it. Think about what that really is. It's a brilliant, overactive nervous system that could not find safety lying still in the dark. So its owner spent the night out running it on foot. Dickens even slept with a compass so he could align his bed to face north, convinced that it would help. He was doing what all of us do, reaching for the external fix, any ritual, any control, when the real issue was the state that he was carrying inside. The walks gave us some of the greatest observations of London ever written, but they were not a cure. They were a man-managing nervous system that never felt safe enough to rest. Now let's talk about a mind that ran even hotter, Nikola Tesla. Tesla claimed he slept no more than 2 hours a night. He would work in his laboratory through the entire night, chasing ideas, so absorbed that his lab assistants reported he would sometimes simply collapse at his desk from exhaustion and fatigue. We loved this story. We felt it was like a badge of genius. 2 hours of sleep, look how much he achieved. But read a little closer and it stops being inspiring and starts being sad. When Tesla was a young student, his working and sleeping habits got so extreme that his professors warned his own father that this young man's schedule was, in their words, killing him. And not long after, at 25, Tesla suffered a complete breakdown. And here's the part that nobody seems to want to talk about. Later in his life, Tesla developed severe obsessive-compulsive behaviors, intense rituals, paranoia, a mind that couldn't stop scanning, could not stop running, could not be still even when the work was done. We call that genius, but from where I sit, having lived in a body that could not switch off, I recognize something else. I see a nervous system stuck in overdrive for an entire lifetime, a system permanently in an activated state, that alert state, the one that is brilliant for solving problems and catastrophic for finding rest. Tesla gave the world alternating current, radio, the foundations of the modern age, and he could not give himself a single full night of sleep. The same engine that powered the genius is the same engine that would not let him rest. And this is not a flaw in him. That is what an unregulated nervous system does, even a magnificent one. Okay, Churchill is interesting because he is the one who built a system to cope, and it almost worked. Churchill would stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning, talking, dictating, his mind racing with what one person around him described as 1,000 ideas a day. He was famous for his energy. He was also famous for what we called his black dog, the long stretches of heavy, low, dark moods that would settle over him. So how does a man carrying all of that function well enough to lead a country through war? He engineered his rest. Churchill took a deliberate nap every single afternoon, no matter what was happening, even at the height of war. He would get undressed, go into bed, and sleep for an hour or two in the middle of the day. He said it would let him get 2 days out of 1, and he leaned on alcohol and later stimulus to manage the swings. Now, I want to be careful and fair. I'm not a historian, and I'm not going to slap a diagnosis on someone that's been gone for 60 years. People debate still what exactly Churchill lived with. But here's what the story shows us that is useful. Churchill could not simply will himself to calm at night. His mind ran too hot for that. So instead of fighting it head on, he built deliberate recovery into his day. The nap was not laziness. It was the most sophisticated nervous system management of anyone on this list. And that is genuinely closer to the answer. Churchill understood instinctively that you cannot run a nervous system at full throttle for 18 hours straight and expect it to gently switch off at bedtime. He gave his system a release valve in the middle of the day. And he was working around the problem brilliantly. He just never got to solve it at the root. But he is one of the few who points us in the right direction. And then there's a story that shows us what is at stake when this goes unaddressed for too long. And that's Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn was a chronic insomniac. Her sleeplessness was tied directly to anxiety, to the crushing stage fright and performance pressure she carried as she rose to her fame. By her own account, she could not sleep without help, and that started early. So the studio doctors would give her barbiturates, sleeping pills, and then when the pills left her groggy, she was given stimulants to counter them. She washed the sedatives down with champagne, hoping for a good night of sleep. I want to slow down here because this one matters to me. Marilyn was not chasing a high. She told reporters that the nicest thing for her was sleep, because at least then she could dream. She was a woman desperate for the one thing her body would not give her, natural rest. And every solution she was handed worked on the outside. It would sedate the brain, forced it down chemically. Nobody was helping her with the anxiety that was underneath, the part of her that did not feel safe. In 1962, she died of a barbiturate overdose, the very things prescribed to help her sleep. I tell this story not to be dark, and not because her ending is the point. I tell it because Marilyn's struggle is the same struggle so many people watching this know intimately. The chasing, the pills that stop working, the desperation for natural sleep that keeps slipping away. The whole world tried to fix her sleep from the outside, and the outside was never where the problem lived. If you take one thing from the story, let it be this. The answer to chronic, anxiety-driven sleeplessness was never going to be found in a stronger pill. It was in helping the frightened nervous system find real safety. And it is that kind of help that she never really got, but it does exist, and is the entire reason I do this work. So let's step back and look at this all together. Dickens walking 30 miles to escape his mind. Tesla running on 2 hours until he collapsed. Churchill napping his way through war, and then Marilyn chasing rest in a bottle. 4 completely different people across 2 centuries, and the same thread runs through every single one. A brilliant, vigilant, high-achieving nervous system that never learned how to turn down. And here's what I want you to notice, because this one is a hopeful part. None of these people were broken. Every single one of them was extraordinary, and their ability to switch off was not a defect. It was the flip side of the exact intensity that made them who they were. The same system that wrote the novels and invented the future and led a nation and lit up the screens was the system that could not find a switch at night. If you are a driven person, a thinker, someone who carries a lot and shows up for everyone, and you cannot sleep, you are in remarkable company. Your sleeplessness is not a sign of something wrong with you. It is often the sign of a finely tuned, hard-working nervous system that has simply never been taught how to rest. And that is the one advantage you have that they did not. You get to know. You get to understand the actual mechanism. You get to learn the thing none of them were ever taught. How to bring a brilliant, overactive nervous system back to safety so it can do the one thing it's always known how to do. And you don't have to walk 30 miles to do it. So if you saw yourself in any of these stories, I made something exactly for this, and it's called the 7-Day Nervous System Reset. It's a short, gentle, guided process that teaches your body the safety signals that these brilliant minds never had access to, but one day at a time. And it's the foundation I use with my clients. And it lives inside my sleep support community, which is only $8 a month. So the nervous system reset is free inside, along with deeper courses to actually heal your sleep. But let's be honest about this. 7 days will not undo years of a nervous system running hot. It will gently begin to teach your body that it's safe to settle. Most people come out of it calmer, less anxious than before, falling asleep a little easier. And that's the beginning. And if it's not for you, if it doesn't feel supportive, message me and I'll be happy to return the money with no friction at all. The link's in the description. History is full of people who never got to switch off. You don't have to be one of them. Your nervous system can learn, and when it does, you get your nights back and a whole lot more. I'll see you inside. Rest well.